My name's Keane Burns. I have cerebral palsy. I've been in a wheelchair my whole life, and I'm the current Scottish Premiership football captain. I have a podcast called All About Ability, which I started about a year ago. And I started this because I wanted to show disability in a more positive way and have a good influence on the fact that we can do a lot of things, but not just in disability for everybody. It's always about focusing on what you can do, not what you can't. That is the message that I try and send to the podcast. And this challenge we've got coming up is the 1000k All About Ability challenge, which is me trying to do 1000k in a month, the month of April. The reason why I wanted to try and do this is that it actually shows exactly what I mean when I talk about all about ability and what that means in the sense of showing that you can overcome struggle and you can do something as extreme as doing 1000k in a month. While I'm doing 1000k this month, I would like to get other people involved and try and make it 2000k altogether. Getting people doing 5ks, 10ks throughout the month and getting involved and saying, I'm doing this as part of the challenge. Because as we all know, going through a struggle like this, it's always good to go through it together. And that is the point of trying to get people involved and trying to get people talking and doing something good for themselves. So the more we can get involved, the better. I've set myself the target of £1,000, and my chosen charity is the Celtic FC Foundation. The aim of the foundation is to help the most vulnerable people in society, and I really feel like this matches into what I'm trying to do, and it connects with everything that we're trying to do all about ability. And I feel like in this current climate, this is the perfect charity for me to support. So, what does 1000k look like for somebody with my condition in a wheelchair? Well, I'm going to be using 3 different machines. We have a handbike machine, we have a ski machine, and we have a row machine. The handbike machine, I'm going to be in the chair. There's no doubt that it's going to be tough for me. If you want to get involved, just search for me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram through All About Ability. You'll find me there, and you can join in, do a 5k, 10k, help yourself and help other people. There's no better way to use your time. Hello and welcome to the All About Ability podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Kale Financial, specialists in mortgages and protecting your family's finances. Whether you're looking for the best mortgage for you or want to make sure you and your family aren't struggling if you're seriously ill or pass away, call Kyle Financial on 0141 447 0290 or email advice@kyle-financial.co.uk. I will include this information in the show notes. Okay, so we're here with Paul Pettigrew today, the owner of GamTalk, and I've looked forward to having you on for a while, and you're doing some great stuff, and it's great to have you here.
Thanks very much, mate. Glad to be here. Good to get a chat.
So you've been on a few different podcasts. The Sean McDonald's, I've listened to some of that, and your story is really interesting. And I've got some in terms of actually gambling, I have quite a few family members that have had issues with that and stuff. So it's something that was quite interesting for me to do like a deep dive on, and something that I've actually really wanted to cover in the podcast for quite a bit. But in terms of actually how you started this, like one of my main things that came into my head was how much gambling seems like it's normalised today, in the sense of being like the idea of risky behaviour. Like how normalised is the idea of taking drugs and coke and everything like this, and when you look at the way that gambling is perceived, you see bookies everywhere. Why do you think that this sort of risky behaviour is becoming so normalised, and how do we necessarily start to bring that down from a gambling perspective?
I've always thought that gambling isn't taken as seriously because drugs and alcohol can kill you. If you drink too much, it can kill you, and if you take too many drugs, it can kill you. Smoking will eventually kill you. I feel because gambling isn't seen as, it doesn't seem to have any physical implications. I believe that's why it's not taken as seriously. But I mean, in my opinion, and from a lot of people's opinion, it will kill you, upstairs. And that's the way I was. I was basically dead inside. Do you know what I mean? Just carrying a lifeless body around, basically, is the only way I could describe it. So in my opinion, that's why it's not probably taken as seriously. But because if you have a heavy drinking session, of course, it can really badly damage your health, but it's not seen if you ever a heavy gambling session, that it can affect your health, but it can affect your mental health. So I think that's where it needs to be. There needs to be a new perspective on it, in my opinion.
It's really interesting to see that, because that's actually something that we were talking about yesterday as I was prepping for this. The idea that the physical health aspect of alcohol and drugs is more obvious, and then betting companies can get away with the idea of, well, it's up to you to control it. You know, it's up to you. And do you think that the kind of the rise in mental health awareness is what's making it more acceptable to bring gambling to the forefront and saying, look, there obviously is issues here, and there are obviously people that like it can get out of hand, especially now that it's all online. So easy to access. It's so simple to be able to go. Like, you used to be able to have to go places to go and do it, but now you can do it without your phone.
I think just in general, all the raising awareness of people's mental health is good for all reasons. It's good for all aspects of everyday life for everybody. Gambling specifically, I don't know exactly what impact it has on it, although I know it will be a positive one. But I feel like it's just with the rise of the amount of advertising that goes on around gambling, I think people have become like, they realise how heavily it is a part of industry, of society today, and I just feel like there's just more problem gamblers. People don't like that phrase, problem gamblers. To me, it doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's not a big deal, but I think there has just been a rise of people who have had problems with gambling, and it's just came to the forefront as a main issue, which I think is important that it is.
Definitely. And so with gambling particularly, it seems to be like that people don't really notice it's a problem until it gets really on a slippery slope. What are the signs to you that for somebody when they start to notice that it's potentially getting out of hand?
I think, going on my own experience, one of the ones I always go back to quite early on is if you're lying about your gambling. I think that if you're lying for any reason at all, there is a reason behind it. It's either guilt, shame, or you just want to hide it from people. You know you'll maybe get in trouble. So for me, if you're lying about how much you're spending or how often you're gambling, I think that's quite an obvious sign. And just as well, I compare it to alcohol. You shouldn't be drinking like 6 and 7 nights a week, and that's just the exact same with gambling. You need to treat it in the same vein. I think people would be far more likely to be pulled up if that was alcohol, or if people are smoking right away. You kind of look at them and think that it's an unhealthy way to live your life. So I think that you should treat gambling in the same vein. Do you know what I mean? Like, once or twice a week is fine. Keeping within your limits is fine. But once it goes beyond that, then I think it's time to pull people up on it.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something that seems like it's not. You're really doing a great job in bringing that discussion to the forefront. And it's actually really good to see, because I think it's one of these subjects that seems to be undervalued for sure. It can definitely ruin your life. And when I think about bookies, I always associate the idea of bookies like with, whenever you see a bookies, there's generally a pub near it, or there's generally stuff like that close to it, and it makes me wonder, like, do you see it being like do they almost prey on the idea of drug people? Like, does alcohol and betting go hand in hand, and is there anything to the idea that they target working class communities for these kind of things?
Without a shadow of a doubt, in the sense of the working class communities. So I'll give you an example. I live in Port Glasgow, and like just up from me is Kilmacombe. Kilmacombe's a more upper class area, and there's no bookies in Kilmacombe. And as far as I'm aware, there's none in Bridge of Weir either, which is again a kind of more upper place to live. But in the Port Glasgow like town itself, there's 3 bookies. In Greenock, which is just next to me, which again is more of a working class area, I don't even know how many, probably in the whole town, probably over 10. Do you know what I mean? So they definitely prey on people who maybe have less of an income, and they feel that it's a way of making money, which is ridiculous. In terms of the alcohol side of it, I think just it probably is something that I've not really gave much thought of. But you're right in the sense that whenever anybody's drunk, they probably make more stupid decisions. And I think having a bookie there and a wallet full of money, it's a recipe for disaster.
Definitely. I mean, even I have experience with that. It's interesting because we have this thing of, it seems like getting involved in betting has become a younger and younger thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I remember putting my first bet on when I was like 16, and I just sort of fell out of it. But then I knew people that were friends of mine that got me really into it, and that hole gets kind of bigger and bigger. And you see, we're talking about like physical bookies that are like near pubs and stuff, but from the online perspective, we've seen that like Facebook and stuff. We know that they've actually recently brought in like psychologists and things to figure out what attracts people to certain areas. Do you see this being a thing where they're actually specifically able to target addictions in people to get them to come towards betting and not necessarily educating people on what the damages could be? I mean,
in terms of like making things addictive, you're spot on. I don't know if you've ever like played the slots online or anything, but they're bright, they've got sound, they're vibrant, and I believe I seen a stat the other day that they're the most addictive form of gambling. Don't quote me on that, but I think that was it. And it's all when you're playing them, you can see why you get a rush, and you know you're waiting for like a bonus or something, or a big win to drop in, and they'll tease you and tease you and tease you, and you can see why people stay. But these companies are hundreds of £1 million companies for a reason. They put a lot of research into what makes people addicted and what makes somebody stay online and playing for longer and keep going back. It's not by accident.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the idea that alcohol and like tobacco have to be regulated. But they can't just put stuff out whenever they feel like it. They have certain times that are acceptable and not. Whereas with gambling, you've still got, you know, Bet365 on every advert, and when you're watching football, they're everywhere. You know, and even when they're doing the advert itself, they'll put right at the end, stop when the fun stops. But it's like done in a way that it's almost like they're doing it because they have to do it, not necessarily, you know. I mean
it's a box ticking exercise.
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting that they hadn't really had to be regulated, but that almost seems like why it's been so pushed, because eventually you've got to think that they will have to do the same that alcohol and tobacco have done.
I think they will, but I think it's a long time away. I know that there's quite a push from like other kind of organisations who are working on gambling harm. I know they're really big on like the advertising side of stuff. The guy that I know, James Grimes, who runs the Big Step, he's really big on all that stuff, and they do some great work. But I think it still is quite a while away, because like the football teams in England and Scotland that are all sponsored by gambling companies, if that stops, like suddenly, then there is a massive, you know, amount of money that just leaks out of the game, football. Yeah. So I don't think something that will go away quite quickly, but I think in the end it will need to be far more regulated than what it is now. But again, that will take some time, which is why I think education is the most important matter. You can't wait for another 10, 15, 20 years. You need to just educate people now while they're young, because they're going to be bombarded with it for a while yet.
Yeah, it's part of everyday life, and you can't just let those lives be ruined by waiting for companies to sort themselves out. You know?
Aye.
It's
what you're essentially asking. What you're essentially asking a company to do is to slash millions off their profits, and I mean nobody is going to do that willingly. Do you know what I mean? They're not going to throw their hands up and say, "Aye, that's no problem, we'll do that." So they need to be backed into a corner and forced to do it, which I think there is a kind of snowball effect now. There is pressure being applied to them, but as I said, it will still take some time to get the kind of final result that a lot of people want.
See, do you think there's like a social responsibility for football clubs and things like that? Because when you look at, for example, just off the top of my head, like Celtic and Celtic Rangers, they both have betting companies as their sponsors. But what's interesting is that the actual, Celtic Rangers fans associations, they'll raise money for tries and feedbacks, and yet the clubs will be sponsoring these betting companies. Is there a social responsibility for the fact that that doesn't actually, something about that seems like it doesn't match up, and then also, as much as the money's into it, is there not a social responsibility for the clubs to be like, this doesn't match with what we're trying to do here? And
it doesn't seem clean to me. It doesn't seem the right way to go about things. But at the same time, I'm switched on enough to realise that these clubs need to get their money from somewhere. Their argument, Celtic and Rangers and every other club that's got a gambling sponsorship, their argument will be that a lot of people gamble safely and responsibly, which again, completely true. But is it the best message to be putting out to young people? I mean, football is by far and above the most popular sport in the UK. So to be so polluted by gambling, they're almost synonymous with each other now. They come hand in hand, like having a bet on while you watch your football. Do you know what I mean? It's almost everybody does it. To me, something doesn't sit right with it. I think I'm a purist, I would say. I'd like people to just sit and enjoy the game for what it is, rather than waiting to see who's the first goal scorer or how many corners there is in the first half or some stupid stuff like that. But again, it's just the world we live in. It's society today, I think.
But you're even seeing it, people betting on things like fixed events and like, for example, like wrestling or
the next Prime Minister.
Yeah, like things like that, and they're like that's not even, there's no chance in that. People know the result of that.
That's just to get a bet on.
Is there like a danger that this is getting, like, at least when it was sport, at least when it was purely sport events, you're like, well, that's at least that result, we don't know what's going to happen with that, generally speaking. And it's like, but now you're seeing it dip into these, like, I was telling a friend the other day, like, looking at me and my brother, we watched the wrestling a lot, and then we bet on WrestleMania one year, and there was this guy that was he just got added in basically, and there was no logic, like, he was totally not part of the story or anything. And we were like, we went to put a bet on, and it was like he was overwhelming favourite, and we were like, what is this thing? And he won, and we were like, what? So you know, I mean, people just know the results of these things, and yet they're still putting bets on it, and it seems like that's as an addiction in itself. It seems like it's very, like, no, because like what you just said is they're obviously saying things like, yeah, people do gamble safely, and that is true, but there's also, you can't say that without then giving the education of how it can get out of hand as well.
You need to look out for the minority as well, not just the majority. And the thing is, in this country, the minority is roughly about 1 million problem gamblers, and that's a big minority. Do you know what I mean? That's an awful lot of people that you still need to account for and look out for. I believe the figure is a lot larger than that, but even if it is, I'll take it at 1 million. How many people does that then affect? Like, for me, I was the one person with the addiction, but my mum, my dad, my brother, sister, my friends, my girlfriend at the time, they were all affected by it. So you still need to look out for the minority, because it's an awful lot of people. And your point about wrestling and stuff as well, I couldn't agree more. I remember years ago, I used to love wrestling when I was younger, and I remember even years after I ever watched it, I would watch the Royal Rumble. It was always brilliant. And I remember one year I went on, I don't know what company it was, say Ladbrokes, for example, and I seen you could bet on it, and I thought that's quite interesting. Then I went on, and I think it was maybe like John Cena was like 1 to 20 to win. I was like, right, so that's just gave away that John Cena's winning. Do you know what I mean? But I thought to myself, like, everybody else that puts on a bet of a different person, like Vince McMahon, that must be laughing at daft. Do you know what I mean? Thinking, like, we know exactly who's going to win. But no, you're completely right. I think that's mental. My pal put £250 on one time for Scotland to vote yes to independence. Like, things like that. Like, why would you even want to bet on that? Do you know what I mean? It was brilliant, man. It was still the funniest bet I've ever seen lose. But it's mental, man. The things people bet on, but you can bet on everything now, as you said. You can bet on absolutely everything.
But that is the thing, and when you think about the fact that it's right there on your phone, I've read that, like, similar to, like, for example, similar to like porn addiction, they say that the addiction can actually start from the device itself, rather than just, like, so the idea of going on your phone and unlocking it, you're getting a rush because you're thinking, as soon as I open this, I'm either going to do one of those things, like as soon as you're with your phone in your hand, you're thinking, the idea of me opening this is exciting because I'm going to go put a bell on. But so like, when you look at the idea that do you think there's like a deeper root to this, in the sense of, like, yeah, obviously the main issue is the actual gambling in itself, but is there a way of looking at how the device and how easy the access is of just having an iPhone, having everything at the touch of your fingers? Can we look at maybe how we deal with how people are using their phones, and using the idea of how to deal with how they access these things, like how it can be cut from the root, basically?
I really, really feel that within the next, I don't think it's a long time away. I feel within the next 10 years, you will have people who are being treated for being addicted to their phone. I mean, I know people already who are, without a doubt, even if they admit it or not, are addicted to their phone. The first thing that they do in the morning when they wake up is unlock their phone, check all their socials, and then that's all they do all day. And I mean, since I started GamTalk, my work is heavy on Instagram and Twitter and such to a lesser extent, but I'm on my phone a lot. But I found myself getting quite down at times when I was looking, my screen time would be 13, 14 hours at times. So from now on, I'll get up, and before I check my phone, I'll go a walk. And then at times I will just put the phone down for an hour or two. And you need to do it. I think it's essential. But that's a really interesting point you made about people getting a rush, like kind of unlocking their phone before they even know what they're going to go do, if that's gambling or not. It's an interesting point I need to look at. But no, I agree completely. I think there's so many people in society nowadays that are completely addicted to their phone. Like, you can almost see when it dies a battery, their mind goes AWOL. I know guys that can't go out in my own group without taking a portable charger with them. I'm like, you need to grow up, man. Do you know what I mean?
But I think it's almost like everybody needs to become more aware of the fact that there's like an overall addictive personalities, and how, like, so, I know people that are totally fine, drinking alcohol, and people that are totally not fine drinking alcohol. And I'm one of those people that's not fine drinking alcohol at all. And it was something that was like, you see people and you're like, how come they can drink casually and I can't? How come that every time I drink I end up KO'd somewhere and forgotten more? So it's like realizing that it's maybe not necessarily the actual activity, but how your mind works.
I'm a very addictive person. I believe my first addiction in life was football, without a doubt. Like, it wasn't unhealthy because it kept me healthy, if you know what I mean. Like, and body wise, I was always running, I was exercising, I was playing football every single day. But I would need to be torn away from a pitch, or torn away from my boots in football and stuff, growing up. And I believe that was then the kind of, how do I say it, the route maybe into gambling. Like, I always talk about when I got released from a professional environment, how I was completely gutted. Like, it was almost like trauma. It really was like trauma. And there was a massive void left in my life. And then gambling just jumped right in and filled that void. But I think looking back, and even now, I've got an addictive personality. Like, I give this example all the time. People probably think I'm a bit mad, but if I've got like a sore head or sore body or whatever, I rarely take painkillers ever, unless it's seriously intense pain, because, to be honest, I'm just kind of worried that maybe I could get addicted to painkillers. And I've never took drugs in my life ever, and I never would, because I know that I would get addicted. Same with smoking. I stay away from smoking. I've had one or two fags, I need to admit, which I'm ashamed of. But like, I would end up addicted to that as well. So the only one is alcohol. I drink it a weekend on a Saturday night, most weekends, but I'm fine with alcohol, to be fair. but anything else like that, I stay away from because I know I do have a very addictive personality.
Yeah, and I think that's really difficult for people to acknowledge, is to look at yourself like that and go, this doesn't work for me.
Aye, that is. It's very hard. Some people feel, how do I say it? Some people feel almost like they should feel sorry for themselves because they maybe can't drink or they can't take drugs or they can't gamble. Like, I don't feel bad. My mates are all talking about Cheltenham in my WhatsApp group all week. And I don't sit there and say, oh, I wish I could gamble. I just accept, right, it's not part of my life. I do it destructively. That's it. You just need to take it in the chin. I'm very lucky to be able to do all the other things that I do in my life. So if I need to sacrifice one thing to make me and everybody else run about me have a better quality of life, then that's just something that you need to do.
Yeah, completely. And you've talked about how, you always speak about the job you do and how much you enjoy doing it and how it doesn't really feel like work anymore. It just feels like something that you enjoy doing.
Aye.
Where does that fulfillment come for you now? And the addiction part of is the idea of, like, do you think that part of you now feels like you're now doing something that's making a real difference and helping lives basically, and it gives you that, it takes away that need for fulfillment or addiction or insecurities in a way?
It's weird when I see like young people now, even like on the street or wherever I see them. It's weird. I almost look at them and think like I just want to make sure that they avoid what I went through. Anybody. So that's kind of where I get it from. Like every day to make sure I keep adding more schools. I keep adding more youth groups. Like I'll travel wherever to talk to a group of 2 people or 200 people. I don't care what it is. So that's where the fulfillment comes from, just to make sure that as many people as possible avoid kind of all the misery I went through. But no, as you said about, I love it. I probably sound like I'm complaining when I say how busy I am, but I don't mean it in that way at all. I absolutely love it. It's a learning process. Do you know what I mean? It's like what you're doing with us. I'm sure like you seem very confident at it now, but at the start it takes a bit of getting used to, and that's just the same with us. You make mistakes and you learn along the way, but I love the process.
100%. And what you just said then is spot on. It's loving the process. It's loving the idea that you're on the right path of what you want to be doing. And I had this exact same thing. Like, see what you just said about when you see younger people, you just want them not to go through what you went through. It's exactly why I'm doing this as well. I think that's something that's why you jumped out to me so much, is something that I wanted to talk to, because I could tell that we had similar thought processes and what we were trying to do, and with the idea, like, just even realizing that we all have different things we go through. Like, my whole experience is the idea that I wanted to do that particularly for people like younger people with disabilities. They think they can't do it because disability is so emphasized as such a negative thing. But it's the same sort of feeling that we both get from those two things, even though they're two totally different things. And that's kind of what it's all about, in the sense of showing that with different experiences, we all have something that we can relate to beyond the surface level.
100%. It's everybody. There's a common good that I think people should try kind of chase. You know what I mean? And I'm not blowing smoke, but I really admire yourself as well. I seen a video on your Twitter the other day. You were doing the exercise with the arm machine. I know how hard that is in the gym, but no, things like that. Like people that are in your circumstance could maybe mope and feel down and whatever. So I've got nothing but respect for the fact that you doing things like that and you're doing so well with podcasts. So it's just about making the best of your situation. I think there's always somebody who's got more, or somebody who's got more talent, or somebody who's got better circumstances. But if you're constantly comparing yourself with other people, then you'll be miserable forever. I think you just need to take what you've got and make the most of it. I don't have many skills, trust me, but I try to make the most of the ones I've got.
And no, totally, and you can see that you've put a lot of work in, and it's not really something that I've seen. I think from what you're doing, like, I'd never seen anyone really focusing on gambling in such a effective way. Like, there's ways of talking about it, even with speaking about things like mental health. It's almost became sort of a fad in a lot of ways. You just see people saying things to almost come across like a good person, rather
I
than
know what you
actually,
mean.
you know, it's you know, they always say like, let's talk, but then you're like, well, what are we talking about though?
I know. I really agree. There is a lot of people passing on a message of like, what's the one I seen the other day, like be kind and things like that. And I think, I don't know, like you can. All I would say on that matter is you can tell who's genuine and who's not. You can spot it a mile away. And I think authenticity will always shine through. People will realise who's authentic and who's really meaning what they're saying and who's not. And don't focus on people, just do what you're doing.
Definitely. See, in terms of like specifically on mental health, and obviously I know you spoke about like how bad it got for you gambling wise, but when I spoke about my own experience, one of the things that I've referenced is how that actually getting to how bad that was showed me why, like, it kind of showed me why I was feeling that way and what made me want to pull myself out of it. What was for you like when it was getting really bad? What initially was that initial was there an initial sort of moment where you thought I need to try and pull myself out of this?
Mine was more a kind of case of I had completely and utterly accepted that I was never going to get better. Like I'd full scale accepted that I would end up dying young. And I would be just kind of a case of somebody who people would talk about and be sad about, and I could see it all. Do you know what I mean? I could see what people would say about me and things like that, and it's sad to reflect on that. But mine was more a case of I just thought, right, if that's going to happen, at least let your family and your mates kind of see that you fought. Do you know what I mean? Like they actually gave it an effort to try get back on your feet, and then they can say he had a gambling problem and he fought it, but he just couldn't beat it. And then just from kind of showing a bit of fight, you just win wee small battles. Do you know what I mean? You go one day where you don't gamble, which for me was like it was an Everest, and you take a bit of confidence from it, and it doesn't get automatically better. Like it doesn't go like this. Do you know what I mean? Recovery from that doesn't go just constantly up. What's the word I'm looking for? Incline, but you start to win wee battles, and then I just started to get back to my feet. You start to feel better, and your brain starts to kind of rewire from all the negative thoughts to some positive thoughts. You realise the support network you've got run about me, which I'm sure you've got as well. And you just start to win wee battles, take a bit of confidence from the fact that you survived all the stuff you've already been through. And you start getting back on your feet. Like there's no obstacle, there's no challenge, there's nothing that I look at now and think, right, I'll not be able to get through that. Do you know what I mean? Everything I look at now, I think, right, I've dealt with far worse. I'll get through that. That was a bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but I hope I got it.
It's completely true, like what you're saying about how it all comes with these small wins.
Aye.
And the idea that wins don't necessarily need to always be huge. They can be small steps. Because when you're in that position, and like I was, it's one of those things where you want to get out of it really quickly. And I think the big problem for a lot of people is the size of the task for yourself out of that to get through that. And that's why talking about the fact that exactly what you said there, small wins are so important as you just kind of build that confidence back up. And like the idea that you can then come through anything. So it's one of those things where I think it comes back to what you said earlier. Education is the most important thing of realizing that difficulty and struggle is going to be a part of life, and you have to come through that.
Yeah, you don't get taught enough that when you leave school that life is automatically going to get harder. I think regardless. I mean, even it depends what you do. If you come out of school and you're on one side of the coin where you don't get a job and you don't really know where you're going in life, then that's difficult. If you go to college and university or straight into a workplace where you're not mollycoddled anymore, that's difficult. Everything gets more difficult, and I think you need to be told that from very early on. Your point earlier about the like when we were talking about the small wins, I think you're spot on in the sense that like the size of the task in front of you, that was a big thing for me. I used to say to my dad and stuff all the time, I used to say like, there's no way that I'm going to clear all this debt. There's no way that I'm going to, like my pals are all still going to want to like hang about with me and like me. There's no way I'm going to be able to get back into football, blah, 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 blah. But you just need to start like chopping it down and dealing with small bits at a time. It's like anything else in life. Do you know what I mean? If you try to get out and go do some form of exercise that an athlete can do, and you try to do it from off the couch or whatever, you're not going to be able to do it. You need to work your way up, and you need to chop it down into smaller, sizable tasks. But no, I just thought it was a good point. So talking on that, but and again, you're right. You do need taught that life is going to kick you right in the balls sometimes, and you just need to be able to kind of take that and move on.
Especially because of the fact that, especially today's society, it seems as if it's like people are very scared to point out the fact that not everything's going to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think, of course, I would love it if it was designed in a way that we could just live easy life and it would be simple, but it's not like that.
No, I think as well, there is a sense of, in my opinion, that there is some fractions of society that are a bit too soft, to be honest, where, like, I'm not saying we should go back away in any way, like in time, because like being able to talk about mental health and guys being down and stuff is very important, and that needs to continue. But there is a sense where, like, if something gets hard, people should just kind of quit right away and try to find an alternative route. I don't agree with that at all. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to push through some hard times. Like with myself, some people don't like the term, I go back to a problem gambler, because they feel that, and like some people on Twitter are really prevalent about it, and they feel that what that means then is that you're taking some responsibility on for your addiction rather than gambling companies. Well, of course I take some responsibility for it. Do you know what I mean? Like, gambling companies probably preyed on me, and I wasn't taught anything about it, so I could blame the gambling companies, I could blame school, I could blame the football clubs, but I need to take a degree of responsibility on my shoulders as well. Do you know what I mean? Some people don't kind of want to do that, and I just feel like some people are a bit too soft about some subjects. I think hard times, they make you who you are. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. I really relate and respect that, just because of the fact that what you're saying about, obviously, like you said, they could have done, they obviously didn't help you at all, but in order for you to fix the situation, you need to realise that you had a part to play in it. Obviously, that's the idea that you had absolutely nothing to do with it is very much, if you're never able to acknowledge what you've done wrong, how are you going to fix it?
Exactly. Nobody's coming to save you. Do you know what I mean? You've got to do it yourself.
Because you can have a support system, and the support system is very important, and talking to people is very important. But at the end of the day, it has to come in your mind as well of being like, I want to change this. This isn't the way I want to be.
No.
And for me, especially what you said, that really resonates, just because of the fact that for disability as well, like, people don't like me saying this, which is that I'm in a wheelchair, and people are like, obviously that's not seen as the best thing. People will say your life is difficult and such, but one of the big problems with that is we're so protected from, like, it's like a built-in excuse. Because you're in a wheelchair, it means that you have a reason to fail everything. Basically, if I don't do it in my life, it would just be like, well, he's in a wheelchair, so it makes sense.
You can't work and you can't exercise and things like that, but you can, and that's what I say. I respect what you do. I respect that attitude. So
it's like when I start saying to people that a disability, disability doesn't mean that you don't have to do anything and you can still do these things. It comes across to a lot of people like, why are you being so hard on people with disabilities? But we can't just live our whole life being sorry for ourselves that we've got a disability. We need to be able to be strong enough to go, how can we adapt this, and how can we make the world a better place for everybody? Because at the end of the day, it only takes, I've seen this the other day, it only takes one slip in the shower for you to be in the same situation that I'm in.
Exactly, no, you're spot on. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's weird how life works, how just one wee thing can change your whole life. I think about that all the time. I think about things like if somebody had crossed the road a second later, they wouldn't have got hit with a car, they wouldn't have been in, do you know what I mean? Things like that. I think about stuff all the time. It's mental. If I'd maybe said to my friend that night who asked me to go to a casino, no, I'm not going, would I have ever, would my life be different? Probably would, but do you know what I mean? It's a situation you're in, you've got to deal with it.
And in some way, all these situations that you go through really do, add character to you. There's always like that kind of comparison that I like to make is like when you see like the plants and you have like one with the roots that are growing but they're small, and you have one that's really big that has no roots underneath it. Like me and you could have just been two people that didn't really do it in their lives, but you faced a big thing and managed to overcome it to do something really successful, and I'm trying to do something similar, just in a totally different sort of field, and now we're having a chat about it.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean? So it's
weird,
funny how life works like that.
Aye, it is. It's weird, and this is the first time in my life, as I keep saying that, I'd put all my eggs in the one basket to try do something in football, and I couldn't see myself being happy unless I achieved that goal. For the first time now, I'm looking and thinking that I've got the opportunity to go into hopefully some football clubs and talk, and then go into schools and stuff, and I'm looking and thinking, right, I like that path that's ahead of me. Do you know what I mean? I like where my life's going, and it's a really good feeling. But as you said, character building is everything. You know what it's like, people that get things handed to them, once they get that kind of knock in the face from life, they don't know how to deal with it.
Yeah, and because you see people that life is designed in a way that you're either going to have you're going to face these things, and so even just if you keep getting encouraged to take the easy option, easy things become harder.
That's it. Completely agree with you. You've got to, I think, like, I'm big on all mentality stuff, and I think you need to develop your mentality the same way you do other muscles in your body. Do you know what I mean? You need to work on it. You need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations and see how you react and work your way out of it. Otherwise, you're just, if you wake up every day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you eat shite all day and you don't exercise and you just sit in front of a TV, then how are you developing at all? Do you know what I mean? You need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations, which I think exercise is perfect for. Like, I believe everybody should exercise. Doesn't mean you need to be running 5Ks or you need to be swimming crazy distances or anything like that. But just a bit of general exercise every day, I think, is brilliant for keeping people right.
Because at the end of the day, your body is the thing that's going to have to deal with everything, and people keep talking about stress, how to deal with stress, but if you don't face any difficult situations, you're never going to be able to deal with any sort of stress. And it really comes back to that. That's how you're able to enjoy life in general. And when you're talking about the talks you're doing in schools and stuff and football clubs, what kind of subjects are you going to be specifically focusing on to relate to these younger people in football clubs and stuff?
It's gambling. So the motto behind the whole company is "Don't gamble with your future." So it's not anti-gambling at all. It's not telling people not to gamble. It's just basically making sure that they're aware of the danger signs of a problem developing, and more importantly, how they can then deal with that problem, giving them the confidence in order to be able to deal with the problem early. A problem like that size is much easier to deal with one that's that size. Do you know what I mean? So it's just about kind of not being ashamed of if you end up finding yourself in a situation. There's no shame in it at all. Like, I never wanted this for my life, but it landed at my feet and I didn't deal with it well enough. And I just hope that all these other young people do deal with it. So that's what it is. It's 40 to 45 minute kind of presentation, and they're brilliant. It's my favourite part of the whole job. I love, on a laptop, it's not as good. Do you know what I mean? I like being in front of people and kind of interacting and things like that. So that's why I had news yesterday about the restrictions easing. It's brilliant. I can't wait to get in front of them, start ticking all these skills and stuff off. You know what young people are like as well. They're mad. So many questions to ask and everything. It's brilliant. It's a great experience every time you go.
What's the kind of most surprising question you've got from that younger person?
You need to be on your toes when you open the questions up, because you don't know what's coming at all. I've been asked why I got my hair cut the way that I did. I did my hair a wee bit weird that time. I had my fringe up and I got asked why I had my hair cut that way. But then I've been asked things like pure, serious, important questions like, my dad gambles 6 days a week and he gambles on the horses every day, and my mum's always shouting at him and they're arguing, like, what could I tell him? And I'm like, well, like, that's intense coming from a 14-year-old or 15-year-old, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you don't know quite how to answer that. You just do it as best you can. But no, you get asked everything, and they're really. I did an exercise with a school at the end of last year there, and it was just a bit of paper about them all, name as many gambling companies as you could, and it was a fourth year, so I think they were about 15, and I thought they would maybe be able to name 3 or 4, maybe like your big ones, your Ladbrokes, Sky Bet, whatever, and they come up with 13 different gambling companies. I was like, that's quite a lot to know, do you know what I mean? Off the top of your head at that age, before you're 3 years away from when you can even legally gamble at all, which goes back to the point of the advertising. It's everywhere, absolutely everywhere. It's all over YouTube adverts. It's football. Like, what's the one Celtic are sponsored by? Is it Dafabet?
Yeah.
I've never heard of them in my life. They must be a relatively new one, but so that's what I'm saying. New ones are cropping up all the time. I actually looked into that before, and you'd be surprised how easy it is to set up an online casino. Obviously, you need a bit of money behind it, but see, to get through regulation and stuff, it's a canter for these big companies.
And that does seem quite surprising how gambling's slipped through almost everyone's regulation, and the idea that there is obviously issues with it that are being looked at.
No, 100%. I think, like, imagine me or you made our own alcohol and we started going and trying selling it in the shop. My God, man, you'd probably get jailed if you just did that without notifying somebody. But these companies can set up online casinos, and it's mental, man. Some of the ones you see, like, that's why when people come to me with a problem and they say I've banned myself from my Sky Bet account or something, I'm like, that's not the approach to take. You know, you need to cut the addiction at the root, because there's going to be a new gambling company coming up in a week that you'll be able to sign up for, regardless of how many you self-exclude from, or I don't even know what it's called anymore, take a time out or whatever they call it. You need to chop the addiction at the root.
Because it's always going to be there, like you say, and even when we're talking about, we talked about before, the idea that the addiction starts just from unlocking the phone.
Mm-hmm.
It could do. See, when you look at like really young people getting iPads and stuff, are we almost setting these young people up for just to be into the mode of addiction right off the bat? Because with an iPad or with a phone comes these adverts, these betting companies, like different avenues to be of addiction, from easy access to like porn and alcohol, and everything is there, and they're giving these to like people that are really, really young without any real restriction.
When I have if I ever do, have children, then I would certainly be making sure that there's restrictions on their iPads and their phones and stuff. I think just handing like a 10 and 11-year-old an iPhone or something, well, people have got it younger than that. I think my niece is about 7 and she's got an iPhone, and a tablet and all sorts, and I think it's a bit crazy. Do you know what I mean? You need to make sure that they're safe when they're using these things. Away from, even if it's not gambling or porn or whatever, you need to make sure that there's no like dodgy websites and can meet all these predators and stuff going about. Do you know what I mean? You need to just make sure they're safe on it. So I think that's something that should probably be implemented from the companies themselves, but particularly more importantly from the parents and carers.
Yeah, because nobody's really holding the companies accountable for this. And when I think about our kind of age, right? When we were younger, like I just remember like playing sports, doing stuff, like wanting to go out and meet your pals and do things all the time. And then like the idea of having a phone when I was 12 was unthinkable.
Same. I don't know when I got my first phone. I remember it had no back on it. I don't know why. I just always remember it. It had a battery in it. It had no back on it. It was like think it was a Sony Ericsson or something, but I had no interest in it. Like, it would lie uncharged for 2 and 3 weeks at a time. I had no interest. It wasn't really until I was kind of, even in high school, I didn't have a big, I wasn't addicted to my phone in any way. I would use it to see where my pals were on Facebook and go out with them to meet them. But that was it. It was a method of communication. But now people are living their lives through their phones. Like, I've not downloaded that TikTok because I've seen people spend hours a day on it. Do you know what I mean? But like young people now, it's mental. Uploading an Instagram picture of themselves every single day and chasing that buzz of likes, and I think that's something that needs to be really looked into, like, big time, because all you're doing is trying to get, say, 100 likes. So if you get 110 one day, you feel good about yourself, but then 2 days later you put up a picture and you get 80 and you feel miserable, and then that's no good for people. Do you know what I mean? They need to be educated on that, like have a different way of valuing their self-worth.
Yes, I couldn't agree more, because it's becoming that what you just described there is something that's actually happening as you're speaking. It's very common now, and
Aye.
even for me, like, just like maybe a few years ago, like, likes and all that was like an important thing to me. I thought, I want to post this picture and it doesn't get a certain amount of likes. But you don't even. It's almost like you don't even realise you're thinking about that until you start really taking a bit off it, and you go, that actually is a weird way of valuing yourself.
And it's got to a point as well, like, you feel that the people that are liking your pictures are your pals, and you feel like the people that don't like your pictures ain't your pals. But do you know what I mean? It's mental, and we're all guilty of it as well. Do you know what I mean? We're all guilty. That's why I put a post up on GamTalk Instagram a couple of weeks ago now and asked nobody to like it. Like, and I had to, a lot of people didn't read the caption, so I had to message them and say, can you unlike that? So it's sitting there with 0 likes, and it looks brilliant. It looks so pristine. And it's just trying to get across to people that it doesn't mean a thing. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't mean nothing. I put a post up 2 days ago, and I don't know what happened. It went a bit mad, and it's up over 1,000 and whatever, but it doesn't mean nothing. Like, I didn't get any new subscribers from it. I didn't get any new schools from it. I didn't. So really, it was worthless. Do you know what I mean? It depends how you can look at things.
Well, because it doesn't. It won't, at the end of the day, it won't make you like. So you get all these likes, but then you end up, whatever your situation is, you end up yourself at one point, and you're like, the likes aren't there, nobody's there, and it's just you.
Yeah, that's it, exactly.
That's what worries me for the mental health discussion for the kind of younger generation coming up now, is like, when I was talking about the idea that we didn't really have to deal with that, and I think it probably helped us in the sense of not having that much of an easy access to it. But now, children with such an easy access so early on, it's kind of like, with this rise in the rise in suicide and the rise in just depression, everything about it, surely the idea of how focused we are on social media is going to have a huge part to play in whether we can prevent that, in the sense of being like, social media should be used more as a tool to realise that you don't need it more so than you do. I
can truthfully say from the bottom of my heart at this age now that if I didn't have GamTalk set up, then I would hardly use my social media at all. WhatsApp, I don't know if that is a social media, but I use it to keep in touch with my pals. But like, people always ask me why I don't have a GamTalk Twitter. I hate Twitter. It's so negative. Like, it's so, everything's depressing. Everything's everybody like getting at each other. I hate it, to be honest. So I would never put my company out there. I just use my own one for it. But I would never have my reliance of my self-worth being through social media. I think, like, when you imagine a classroom nowadays, say you've got me and you, and we're both 12 years old, and you upload a picture on Sunday night and you get 500 likes on your picture, and I upload a picture and I'm in the other end of the class and I get 5 likes, my auntie and my granny and 2 pals like it, and I feel miserable about myself, and everybody loves you for it, and you think, but I could be maybe more intelligent than you, or I could be more like funny, or I could be a nicer person in general, but you're seen as, almost a superior human to me because you get more likes. And that sounds crazy, but that's exactly what is going on. And it will, until it's stopped, until like I don't know how they're going to stop it, but until that is stopped, it will continue to kind of ruin the mental health of young people, I feel.
I totally agree. And anyone that's of a young age listening to this, I want them to know that it's about valuing the things that you can do and not valuing something that's so materialistic. You know, like what you said there, there's definitely, no matter how much difficulty you have, there's always something that you're capable of doing that can be beneficial for you, and you don't have to focus. Because I think this is the kind of conversation. We're both. Because we're both fairly young guys. I'd like to think. I mean, this beard makes me look a bit older than that. Actually, it's getting a bit out of control now with the barber's being shut. But you know, hearing it just from people that are like relatively young and able to relate and say like you don't have to live this way.
Nah, value yourself. If any young people are listening, value yourself off on how good a person you try to be every day. Do you know what I mean? How much you know, like are nice to your family and your mates, and how you carry yourself and your personality traits, on your social media presence. I don't judge anybody that uses social media in order to like make money or whatever. I don't make money as you speak from social media, but it does help raise my platform. But the only reason I do that is to then get more skills so that more people are aware of the work I'm doing. But I value yourself off on the way you carry yourself, basically, not on how many likes you get on a photo.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you're obviously putting a lot into trying to make a positive difference. And I seen a wee while ago that you were getting a lot of criticism on the platform we were talking about Twitter, just the idea of actually trying to make some money to make it easier for you to get a bigger reach. And you've seen the influx of people just being completely nasty about it as if it was this horrible thing. And I seen it, and it was terrible to see. And do you think that comes from the idea that people just, it's almost like they like to see you succeed to a certain point, and then it's like if you're doing too well, it's like fuck you.
People want to see you do well until they maybe think you're doing better than what they are, and then that's when they don't like it. And I'm not doing better or worse than anybody. I don't know. I don't compare myself to other people. But that was just a case of like, I put out a subscription service because so many people were offering to like donate money and stuff, and I was like I can't just take random donations. Do you know what I mean? But if you want to sign up, like from £1 a month, or there's £1 a month, there's £1.99, there's £4.99, there's £9.99. Then what you'll be doing is like funding the work that I've got in schools and stuff, because I don't get any funding from anywhere. Do you know what I mean? So everything that I did from September until February the 5th of this year was at my own pocket. So I just thought like everybody else tries to make a bit of money. Do you know what I mean? Like if this really takes off and you end up thousands and thousands of subscribers and you make a bit of money from it, then good on you. Like why shouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? It's not as if I'm ever going to be driving about in a Range Rover or nothing. I don't care about that. But I work 7 days a week at this, and I work almost every hour that I'm awake on it. So if I end up making a wee bit of money from it and it allows me to keep doing what I'm doing, then I don't personally see why there's a negative side to that, to be honest. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, just because I knew that why you were doing it, and it was all for good reasons. And when you think about the idea of it being £1 or a few quid, it's nothing really. And if all of what you're doing is a really positive, important thing. So if anyone wants to go and check out these, subscriptions to you, that's why I wanted to mention it, because I want them to go and subscribe to you and
thanks very much.
Help support you with that, because it really is great what you're doing.
Thank you, mate. I appreciate it.
And then just to kind of wrap it up in a bow, I suppose, is with GamTalk, do you have any sort of particular big goals you had for this year, or how much you want to reach, and what exactly are you a fan of writing them down and targeting them?
I used to do that a lot. I used to write down a lot of stuff. I'd always do it at New Year. I would always write down goals, and then I would never achieve them. And it's just life just gets in the way. Like think how many goals everybody had at the start of last year, and then who managed them. So I think it can be a way of just kind of bringing you down. I just try to take each day as it comes, try to be as productive as I can be, try to stay happy, because if I stay happy, then I'm motivated. If I'm motivated, I get more work done. In terms of the actual goals for the whole year, just my goal will always be the same with GamTalk. It's not about trying to get a big office or get people working for me or anything like that. It's about getting in front of as many young people as I possibly can, as many anywhere, and making sure that they grow up aware of the dangers of problem gambling. That has been the aim since day one, and it always will be. So that's the goal, to start getting these schools and stuff ticked off the list.
I couldn't admire that point, man. It's brilliant, and this has been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much, mate. I've really enjoyed it. It's been brilliant.
Because, all about ability, people think it's just purely down to the meaning of that purely is related to disability, like in the sense of abilities in the word disability. But what it really means to me in an overall scale to relate disability to everybody in a mainstream sense is the idea that you can go from focusing on things that are really negative and things that feeling worthless and thinking you can't do anything, to realize that you do have ability and you can do these things. And then you don't have a disability, but you are the epitome of that whole statement that you said there. So
thanks very much, mate. I appreciate it. Top man.
Great. And where can they find you on social media specifically? Just to give that a wee plug, like.
All right, you can get me, the bulk of my work is done on Instagram, so it's just at GamTalk_UK, and then on Twitter it's Paul Pettigrew 8. I don't post often about my work on maybe once a week or something, but you can follow me on there if you want. But the bulk of the work's done on Instagram.
Well, thanks again, Paul.
Not a problem, mate. Take care.